What's up, guys? David DeSell here, your host of the Business with the Boys podcast, and I am doing this intro solo. Actually, Landon is in the midst of meeting with our guest that we had on, Kyle, as we speak. So he is a little tied up right now, but this conversation was awesome to see how Kyle has gone from, working with another partner to branching off on his own, leaving with, I think it was like 6 team members. He's now sitting at 65 team members over just a few years. And he's just done an amazing job of scaling his business. So I'll properly introduce him here in a moment. But before I do, just a quick thank you to the folks over at Landjet. They are the ones that keep this show going, and we are eternally grateful for their support. And if you haven't yet checked out Landjet, I would highly encourage you to do so. And if you don't know what Landjet is, think of a private jet, but on wheels. It's one of those modded out Mercedes Sprinter vans that can bring you from point A to point B, whether that's a traveling meeting or going to meetings, going to and from sporting events with your friends and family or concerts, things like that. So I'd highly encourage you to check them out. But Kyle Maring, he is the CEO of Premier Claims, which is a national and private adjusting company. They work across the nation, serving the lower 48 states, and they help people maximize their property insurance claims and get fair settlements while working directly with policyholders, contractors, and property management companies. There was a recent 60 Minutes episode that Kyle had talked about that really highlights how much white collar fraud has happened in the insurance industry and ultimately how important his company's role is in making sure that they are being held accountable. And don't quote me on this exact number because I may be off just a little bit, but when you experience a disaster, be it fire, water, wind, hail, whatever, the insurance company, they're going to try to give you as little money as possible. And what Kyle's company does is help get what you deserve and a proper settlement amount. And the number that he shared is whatever the insurance offers or already pays out, on average, he's able to get his clients 1,100% more than what the insurance company gave. So it's insane. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive into the episode. Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believed me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah, Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic got to say. I got them picking up the pieces. That me, you really playing with your life. I'm about to come and run it all back. Well, before we dive in and chat with you, Kyle, I first want to just toss a nice thank you to Terry Shanahan, excuse me, who introduced us. So, Terry, if you're listening to this, which you should because Kyle's your boy, we appreciate you and thanks for the introduction. But Kyle, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
How do you know the Pocket Hulk, known as Terry Shanahan?
The Pocket Hulk.
So Terry and I we came into contact earlier in the year from business. We started working with Terry on all of his properties, and definitely has grown into a friendship from there. And yeah, I mean, we're pretty much talking to Terry every other day at this point. So he's got a lot going on. He's a busy guy.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. He's a stud.
Yep.
Yeah, I think when we talked to him, he was, I forget at this point, 100 or 200 properties or something insane like that.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's taken us a little bit to get through everything. We're, I think, on the third round of inspections. So all of his houses it's been a lot.
You're like, Terry, I've had to hire your own team internally, man. Damn.
And as Terry usually does, he's brought me into almost every conversation. So
Yep.
That's funny.
Gotta love it.
Why
Well,
he's good.
let's rock and roll. So, first, let's start with just real quick what you're doing now. You said you're doing business with Terry. So, what are you doing, with Terry and other people like him? And then I'll bring it back to the beginning days to get a sense of, upbringing and how you got to where you are.
Sure. So I am a public adjuster. I usually coin it as a private adjuster. I work for policyholders. I'm the CEO of Premier Claims, and reason why I work on Terry, he had, I think it's like 165 homes that were hit by hail earlier in the year, and
Jeez.
um, yeah, we saw two hailstorms and a windstorm, like 95-mile-an-hour winds, buzzed right through Omaha, so a lot of damage.
Buy a rental property. They said it'll be fun. They said.
Yeah.
It'll turn out pretty good in the end for Terry.
Good,
It'll be a good day.
good.
But yeah, that's how we're working together. He was passed as a referral from somebody else.
Awesome.
So, Kyle, how'd you get into this world? I mean, it's kind of a unique space to be in, right? I mean, obviously there's insurance agents, but the adjuster space, and then let alone an adjuster on the private side of things representing the policyholder, I feel like is a little unique, right?
It's pretty unique. Yeah, super niche. I was I was living in Syracuse, New York. That's where I'm from originally, and I was in the middle of a rehab on a home that I was also living in. We were renovating the bottom floor after we already renovated the top, so living in the top flat, and we had a water dam claim, so or an ice dam claim. So in the spring, up in Syracuse and Buffalo, we get a ton of snow, ice build up. Um, Warm weather came on quick, and then where the ice on the gutters are, the water starts to run down on the interior walls, and I didn't know what to do. I was like 21 years old. Called my dad. What do I need to do? You need to file a claim. So filed a claim. Allstate came out. They paid me like $5,000, and I was pretty happy with that. That was kind of the concerning part of the story. But 2 days later, I find myself having dinner with somebody, and they said, "Well, you need to talk to our old friend. He's a public adjuster." And so I got on the phone with him. Come to find out, the claim was worth at least 45, 50,000. So I felt a little slighted. He started to sell me on an opportunity in doing this, and I wanted to move away from New York at that time. I was sick and tired of the cold winters and the snow. So,
So you went to
uh,
Nebraska?
I knew that was coming.
roundabout way, I moved
Okay.
to Atlanta. Uh,
Okay. Okay. I take it back.
yeah, based out of Atlanta for 9 years, and ran a boutique outfit with the friend that I reconnected with, and so that's how I landed into this. And him and I we ended up splitting in 2017. Still good friends to this day, but that's when Premier Claims was founded in 2017.
What did bring you out to Nebraska?
So we do a ton of hail and wind claims. They are primarily like in the breadbasket, right? Texas to Minnesota, Denver to St. Louis. That's kind of our strike zone. And I was traveling to and from Omaha like every other week. And when we ended up splitting, I wanted to change. I knew we needed to move to a storm city. That's just not Atlanta. It's not Georgia in general. Even though last year was kind of an unprecedented year for damage in Georgia, but Omaha fit the bill for a lot of different reasons. So in 17, I moved out to Omaha and started to grow Premier.
Love it.
Basically, David, we're a shit show in Nebraska, so it's a good
A lot
spot
of a
for
lot of stuff going
insurance
on.
claims. Yeah, yeah.
Now, are you a Buffalo Bills fan?
I am a Bills fan. It was a rough upbringing.
Been good as of late.
Yeah, it's gotten better.
Well, I will say I don't know if so being from Massachusetts. I don't know if I'm more mad at the Bills for not showing up or mad at the Patriots for showing up and winning and getting rid of their first round draft pick that they had on lock if they just lost the freaking game. So that
I'm
wasn't
sure
fun.
more mad.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Crazy. So what is the company look like now in terms of size? So like amount of team members, how many claims do you do a year? I'm sure it obviously fluctuates, but like give us a sense of, what you've been able to build since 2017, I think you said.
Yeah, since 2017.
Okay, so last 8 years.
Yeah, so we've had steady growth since 17. Today, we're sitting around 65 full-time employees, and then there's some contracted employees. We cover 47 states, 3 territories, DC, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands. Like I said, most of our work is, in the heart of the country. Florida is our number one state, so it's kind of a shot for us. But I spend a lot of time down in Florida, Texas, and Omaha, of course.
So 65 employees, and then if you're able to share just like a range every year, like how many claims do you work on? I'm curious to know volume.
Yeah, so claims and properties is like two different questions.
Okay, so I don't know what I'm talking about. So you
Well,
ask the
Yeah.
question and then answer
yeah.
it.
So with Terry's claim, it's an individual claim, even though it's 165 properties, right? So
Makes
um,
sense.
we're probably working on a few thousand properties per year,
Jeez.
hovering. I think it'll be like between 800 and 1,000 claims per year. Um, Over the course of my career, I'm probably sitting at around 25, 30,000 claims. So
Jesus.
we've done with a pretty heavy focus on hail and wind. So that's the majority of what we work. The
Is
other,
that just because insurance carriers are trying to avoid paying shit out on hail and wind? I obviously they try and pay the least they can on anything, but I mean, it was hail and wind specifically, something they're able to try and give you a lower dollar amount for.
I think they do. Yeah, they definitely give you a lower dollar amount. There's more denied claims with hail or wind, right? It's a little harder to deny a fire claim.
Yep,
If
makes
it's
sense.
arson, it's easier to establish coverage with fire, water, and we do a lot of those claims. Um, I'm not really sure exactly how we started to trend towards the hail and wind, but that kind of dates back to 2010, 2012. We got really super focused on those, and um, definitely think we're the industry leader with those types of claims.
Nice.
So when you went out to Omaha and you started the company, was it like on day one, week one, was it just you? Did you have a couple people that started with you? Like what was that first week like in terms of amount of folks in the team?
Yeah, so week one, when my partner and I decided to, move to dissolving the prior company, basically just worked through how we were going to close out our claims, what we were going to do with employees. I think there was 6 or 7 people that I ended up taking with me. We operated out of Georgia for the first 6 months. So we continued to maintain our space in Georgia, and then eventually signed a lease in Omaha. I think it was in October of 2017. That's when the move came. So about 6 months in Georgia with we grew from the beginning like 7. By the time we were out in Omaha, I think we had 12 to 15 people, and just been steadily growing since then.
So
What
going
is what
from,
does the
oh, go ahead.
workforce look like? I guess I'm curious. Like, are you primarily hiring other adjusters? Is it a lot of back end admin type employees? Some of both? What's the makeup look like?
Yeah, so we have 4 full-time people on the marketing team. Our sales team has about 15 people on it. We have a legal team that has 4 attorneys, 2 paralegals, accounting team with a handful of people. We have desk adjusters. I think there's 8 full-time desk adjusters, field inspectors. It's probably our biggest team is our field inspectors, people having to jump up on roofs, go from property to property. We're covering from the East Coast to the West Coast, so it's a big territory. We have a IT team. Our IT stack has 7 people on it right now. I know I'm missing a
What the hell do
couple
you need so much IT for?
Software development, automation,
Oh,
trying
so
to
you're developing your own.
Your own.
yeah, yep.
I like it.
That's
That makes
some
sense then.
heavy software
Yeah.
development. So we're a lot of repeatable processes, and communication's really big with what we do. So over the last year, been really focused on AI, using AI to integrate with BI and just use our own data. Right? How can we be better? How can we move claims quicker, get people paid faster, and then communicate with them? One of the biggest issues like in our space is just communication. Somebody hands a claim over to a public adjuster. They don't know what's going on. So being able to communicate with our customers, the partners who are referring us business in a better way, that's a huge focus for us.
Do you guys, so you mentioned the marketing team. Do you also like after a storm, like knock on doors and stuff like that, like some guerrilla marketing, or is it just, traditional sort of digital marketing?
Yeah, so it's both. After like a hurricane. So when Helene hit, we had teams deployed. A lot of our partners are also referring us too. So we kind of got to get in position. This was the first storm I was actually able to travel to in the last few years. I just had a few kids, so I've been tied up around hurricane season with babies and.
You say you just had a few kids, like you had triplets?
No, 2 kids.
Oh,
So
2 kids. Okay.
2 kids. First came in 2021, right before Hurricane Isaac, or not Isaac, Ida in Louisiana, and just had a newborn back in June. So we had enough time where I was able to deploy out to Helene. But yeah, we put people in position down. We spread across Georgia. We had people covering the west coast of Florida, and basically we're getting calls from our partners. Hey, there's somebody that needs to talk to you, and then we'll head out to that property.
So
So
going
how
from,
pissed are the insurance carriers when you get involved?
We try to make it as calm and cool as possible at the end of
I
the
mean,
day.
like how does that process go down? Like if I've got a claim, right?
Yep.
Do I call my insurance company first? Do I call you first? Do you file a claim on my behalf? Like how does all this work legally, I guess? Like how are you
Well,
getting paid? I'm assuming you're taking a percentage of whatever you get, right?
yeah, so we work on 100% contingency fees. If we don't get a claim paid, we don't get paid. Our recommendation to anybody is to call us first and let's look at the potential claim. So if it's a hail or a wind claim, right, and it's not a hurricane claim where it's been completely devastated, give us a call. Let's review your policy first. Let's look at the coverage that you have in place. That's your contract with the insurance company. And then we'll get on site and assess the damage. If the damage is going to be allowable to be paid through the policy, then we'll actually move forward with filing a claim. But we want to check those things, check the weather data, make sure it aligns with the damage and what we're seeing. You don't want to file a claim for the wrong data loss, for the wrong type of damage. So we are definitely at checks and balances for people before filing a claim. So that's our recommendation. We get a lot of claims that have already been underpaid or previously denied. We'll review those, make sure it's something we can actually move forward and win for somebody. And then after we review it, we'll get them signed up on a contingency contract.
Nice.
So I want to go back. You said in 2017, I think you said you brought 6 people with you from the prior company. So call it 7 total, including you. And then you fast forward to now and you're at, I think you said 65. Like that's no joke. And there's probably stops along the way at 10 employees, 20 employees where you're making decent revenue and you could take your foot off the gas and still live a good life. I'm curious to know like what your upbringing was like with your folks or siblings. Like where do you think you get your drive from and why to continue to build?
Upbringing, like pretty blue collar. Dad was a chief at a nuke plant. Mom stayed at home. Um, Uncles and aunts had, definitely the entrepreneurial spirit. My brother was like kind of first leading the charge. My younger brother. I think at like 6 years old or 8 years old, he had like gumball machines and he was doing all these.
Hustler.
Yeah, he was hustling, right? Selling stuff on eBay before like I even thought eBay was a thing. But that was, the friends I grew up with in our neighborhood. We were passing out flyers, cutting lawns, trying to just make money. I don't know why that was a thing. Like we kind of grew up middle class, but why I continue to grow and build. That's like the fun for me, I guess. Like the money comes after, and I think we really make a difference at the end of the day. And the market cap is just so much larger than what we're able to handle at this point. The need for additional automation and software improvements, it's going to make us more efficient, be able to handle more claims, help more people. But I don't know. I have fun doing it at the end of the day. So that's what drives me, I think, in being able to grow this. And, we did our annual kickoff yesterday and had everybody, other than our remote people, we had a few people fly in, but other than our team in Omaha, we all met, discussed 2024, kicked things off for 2025, did all of our goals. And I was super proud of the leadership team and the management team. They took the reins on pretty much everything. Having them be able to, construct that, strike new ideas, set goals for themselves and push forward. That's exciting for me.
Now, how do you, so you just gave some kudos to the team, and I hear a lot from people where they find themselves frustrated with their teams. And what I hear oftentimes is they just don't care as much as I do, or they're just not like high performing people. And I think that there's should be truth to the comment of they don't care as much as you own it, but they could also still care a lot, but you should always care more as the person who's running the ship, so to speak. So I'm curious to know what you've done from 2017 to now to build a culture of leaders. If I read between the lines of what you were just saying about them, of high performing people, like was that an intentional focus on building culture? Did it just kind of happen? Help us understand the cultural aspect of the firm.
Definitely intentional. I try to train people to have them do it on their own, right? Like if somebody comes to me with a question, let's use this as a training opportunity and develop them into leaders. We've gone through several leadership programs now. We implemented EOS, then we implemented a Pinnacle program. But that's, in my mind, the only way to scale anything is to be able to, take my hands off of it and then allow the leadership team to take their hands off of things and the management team start to, own those tasks. I mean, culture is like the number one thing. And I think I'd be lying if I said that was just steady growth, right? Like it's wavy. It can be a bumpy ride. I feel like that's some of the biggest mistakes I've made, is continuing to pour into people that weren't the right fit for our company. And I think just having better expectations within myself. You made the comment, they don't care as much. They don't, right? At the end of the day, I don't think there's anybody in this building like that can have it going through their mind as much as I do, 24/7. I know there's some, but just resetting those expectations. I think the older I've gotten, the more I've just, understood that is going to be a thing, and be more okay with it.
So we have a number of our guests that also run legit companies. A number of our listeners run legit companies. Out of curiosity on their behalf, in case they're interested, what leadership programs have you gone through that you've really enjoyed that you would recommend to others?
I thought the Pinnacle program was really good, but EOS was kind of instrumental for us as a baseline. So EOS was just all about executing, right? But it didn't have that strategy piece that the Pinnacle program had. So we already had all the execution in line. It made it for a really nice next step to the Pinnacle. And we actually just ended that at the end of last year. I'll give John Fullwider a solid pitch. He did a really good job. It's a 2-year program. And I mean, I actually just gave him kudos yesterday at our annual kickoff. Like, I didn't think when we started that our management team would be able to have the liftoff in that short amount of time. But being able to have them set their own goals, have them set their own rocks, I think that those two were a really good pair. And he actually started to pitch me on EOS. We did it on our own. We never hired him as what's the
Implementer.
Yeah,
implementer.
Yep. We had 2 really good people internally that were good fits. I mean, looking back on it, I'm sure we could have probably used him. He was instrumental in that next step process in Pinnacle.
But part of me would say, I think if you could find somebody internally to own that, I think that's even better, right?
Yeah, I mean, essentially when we exited the program here, that's what happened, right? So my number 2 is now, they're designated for that role.
Yep. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing if you can get somebody to actually step up and own that and wants to do that, right? So I think that's the ultimate win, is not having to have somebody outside do it.
Right.
What would you say to those business owners who, because I'm sure Pinnacle, as an example, I'm sure that wasn't cheap. It was probably a big investment on your end. What would you say to the business owners who see that and maybe get sticker shock and are curious to know if, be it Pinnacle or any other sort of leadership program, is worth it? What would you say to them?
I think it's worth it if they're open-minded and committed to it.
The price should make you committed to it, though, I think.
The what?
The price should make you committed to it.
I mean, yes, 100%. Right. Yeah, when I first heard the price tag, there's a lot of other things I could have done with that. But I mean, it's what you want to do with your business at the end of the day. I mean, I wanted to grow leaders and a management team and have them, run this business at the end of the day. I want to be involved, but I don't want to run every part of the day to day.
And you don't want the business to run you, right?
Right. 100%.
And is it, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the people that don't come out with the success stories, Um, they could just be stubborn on their own ideas, right? And I think the value in like third party consultants is they're not in the business, and like all businesses are kind of the same at the end of
They
the day.
are.
We
They
got to
are.
something, we got to make money. So everybody wants to overcomplicate their business, um, including me, right? There's things that I overcomplicate every single day, but that third party consultant just dumbs it down and has, a unique view. And that's what they do, right? I mean, they
And they
look,
can call you on your bullshit. It's really hard for us to call ourselves on our bullshit, right? But you're paying them to call you on it.
sometimes it's tough to, call your peers and leaders on theirs.
Yep.
So, and having people, I've tried to create a culture here where people can call me on mine. I want to be on that peer level. Um, if we're playing a game of ping pong or whatever it is, like you're not letting me win. Like call me, like give me a game. Call me out when I'm wrong. Like let's talk about it. But I think it's a big price tag, right? Like in the business, it has to be doing well enough to be able to afford it. But I definitely think it's money well spent.
What do you think is kind of do you think it's a revenue size? Do you think it's an employee size where it makes sense for our individuals to kind of consider this?
I think
Is there a
it's a
sweet spot?
I think it's more employee based because people are 86% of the problem, right? So usually, I mean, I'm sure you guys and anybody else listening has watched Marcus Lemonis go into every business, and usually they have pretty good processes. Usually they have pretty good products, but people get in the way, right? So I think it's more about when you get to a certain number of people and those people are managing other people that these programs are super important.
So, so Landon uh, does wealth management for business owners, and then him and I also do consulting for business owners who are looking to exit or who are just looking to grow with value in mind, right? So if their industry ranges from like a 5 to 8x multiple, we help bring them from that 5 to 8x. And you said something, and I have a just quick story to share because I think it's funny and silly, how simple it can be to fix some problems. And obviously, there's complex problems to solve as well. But you had said, consultants do a good job of like dumbing it down. So we work with this firm on Nebraska manufacturing company, and we're estimating that they'll get a 5x multiple. So with that in mind, something as simple as the cardboard boxes that they use to ship out their product. I was like, hey, how long have you been working with that supplier? Oh, we've been working together for, 20 years. I was like, okay, cool. When was the last time that you not tried to negotiate because you have a good relationship with them, but like, when was the last time you just asked if they could do any better on price? He's like, well, we haven't done that. And I was like, okay, do me a favor, send an email today and just say, hey, so and so, in reviewing our costs, was curious to know if you could do any better on price. And he replied back, and it ended up netting out to saving $50,000 a year from an email at a 5x multiple. It's a $250,000 email that was sent out. Like it's a lot of the things like you and the folks on your team are too close to the issue to be able to see it. So, shameless plug for third party consultants that can come in and be like, well, why wouldn't you just do this? And they're like, oh yeah, that does make sense. So I'm glad that you have suppressed your ego enough to allow those people in to help is the point of sharing that, because oftentimes when they don't bring folks in, it's because of ego.
100%. Yep.
Well, I always like, providing a neutral or outside of industry view as well, right? Because I think there's a lot of things that guys and gals outside of our specific industries are doing that, again, like you said, Kyle, it's business at the end of the day, and all business is just business. And so they're doing things with their teams or their SOPs or whatever, and providing perspective saying, hey, we do it this way. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but and it's like I'll look at it and be like, oh shit, that makes perfect sense. We should be doing it that way too, you know?
I it's just outside perspective. I think at the end of the day, like it's super easy. It's also easy, much easier to tell somebody how they should be doing it than doing it on your own, right? So, I mean, John, we've definitely grown a friendship over the last couple of years. Him and I still talk once a week now, and we have a standing meeting on our calendars. I mean, I told him several times throughout it, like the business consultants like this, I'm super standoffish with, right? Like, I mean, he was after me for several years, and I finally pushed into this program. Glad I did. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a third party consultant, right? People hire me for a specific thing, and I mean, if I can't get behind what others are doing, then nobody should buy from us.
Yep. Good perspective.
I want to go back to how you empower your team and what you encourage them to do in working with your clients, because arguably outside of death, and some of these disasters do result in death of their loved ones depending on the extent of the disaster, but arguably you're working with folks in one of their worst moments of their life. How do you get your team to remain effective, yet still empathetic so that these people feel heard and don't feel like they're one of 3,000 things that are going on over the course of the year?
I mean, I know I just listen, and that's what I try to instill in the team. The problems that they're going through are they're not usually unique to us, but they are to our clients, right? To our prospects. So listen to them. I've heard the same stories out of thousands of people over and over and over again, right? And I can usually just I could say something like, "Oh, let me save it. Let me jump through, and I can fix your problem right now." But they want to talk, right? They want to tell me the story. Our customer service team, they are bearing the brunt of that, definitely throughout the process. But for our sales team too, that it's on the ground or over the phone. if a prospect or a client wants to talk about their situation, let them talk. Listen, there's always something to be gained throughout that conversation, right? And maybe you can help them more, or maybe there's additional business opportunities with that person that you didn't know on the first couple of conversations. So I think that's what we try to do. That's definitely what I try to do, but that's tough, right? When you've dealt with a problem thousands of times. So just continuing to remind myself and the team.
And it may be a similar answer, but so I'm always curious, and I have a belief that if someone frankly has the balls to go and door knock in any sort of sales, from Cutco knives to what you do to solar to landscape, whatever it is. It's one of the, I've never done it, but like from the outside looking in, I'm like, that takes a lot of guts, and I'm sure you learn a lot really quickly. And so I guess my question is, for your folks who are going door to door, how are how are they trained to make sure that they come off as, hey, I'm actually here to help, as
Mhm.
opposed to being interpreted as sort of an ambulance chaser type of person. Because I know that after the hurricane here in Florida, our neighborhood was flooded with people. How do you get them, or how do they stand out from the crowd and make sure that their sincerity is known?
Um, so we don't do a lot of door knocking.
Okay.
We do have that luxury, I guess. We do a lot of B2B business. Um, People are coming in to us typically a little bit warmer, but I started door knocking with this. That's where I started, and I think it's just taking a minute with them. Hey, I'm Kyle. I wanted to introduce myself. I'm working in the area. I'm a private insurance adjuster. This is what I do to help. Saw that you had some damage and want to see what was going on. I noticed it wasn't fixed yet. Is there anything I can do to help you? So um, I try to get them to talk to me and tell me about their situation. We ended up helping a lot of people outside of just like the claims perspective, right? So if we're going in after a hurricane, I think our number one concern is really mitigation, getting people dried in, tarp, shrinked. That's what we're really focused on in the first couple weeks, and the claims come. But people, if they're super standoffish, then I mean,
Next.
that's fine. Hey,
Yep.
I just wanted to drop by. If you don't need anything, that's cool. Do you want a card? I don't know. No has never really been an issue for me, at least. Or, for me, I mean, I can usually read people's body language pretty well. So if they don't want to talk, try to skate out of the conversation.
Yeah, I think Kyle, you and I are probably pretty similar. I've never, been offended by a no, right? It's like, and honestly, I always think from my perspective, if you can just connect with them on a human level first, right? Again, show them you give a shit, show them you truly care. And if you do genuinely come from a place of wanting to help them, which I think is where you have to come from in a service industry, then I think the wall comes down pretty quick and people can sniff out salespeople real quick versus people that are genuine. And
Yeah.
for me, it seems like the less I've ever tried to sell, the more successful I've been, right? Like I'm big on in my personal practice, right? With my private wealth clients, I just want to educate you, right? You to, I don't ever want to sell you anything, right? Other than maybe my team and myself's capabilities, right? But if I educate you enough, then that should become pretty clear. And the rest, should be history. So I can totally relate with that and appreciate that.
I mean, that's our number one job, like on the marketing and sales team, and our client services, customer service team throughout the claims process. That's their number one job, to educate the customer throughout the process. Because after we sign somebody up, the education doesn't end, right? They're going to continue to learn. They're going to have to do a few things throughout the process with us, but we're selling a cup of coffee to somebody really that's never had a cup of coffee before. It's a new thing to them. Most public adjusters outside of like Texas and Florida are not usually dinner table conversation. In Texas, Florida, I think there's a few more. There's more storms, but yeah, that's our job. Make sure they understand the process and want to move forward with it. I don't want to drag.
It helps that you're only getting paid if they get paid.
Yep.
Right. I mean, that should lower somebody's wall, I would think.
Yeah. I that was a draw for me when I first found out about this and got into this. I liked that. I like the opportunity to travel as well, but being able to offer somebody like, basically just a no risk service at the end of the day. That sounded cool.
You seem humble, so you may not admit this, but from my seat, it's probably pretty cool looking back and thinking of some of the crazy stories of door knocking, and then fast forward now, and you got a 65 person company, you're helping 3,000 people, and thinking back to that person that slammed the door or answered the door with a firearm or whatever crazy story I'm sure you have plenty of. So it's probably pretty cool looking back and remaining humble as to where you started.
Yeah, there's been some road stories. Definitely a few. I mean, few nights sleeping on the beaches when the hotel, you don't want to foot a $700 a night hotel. It's been some tough.
That's the thing is you need a hotel when you travel to a storm, but all the local people are in the hotel because their homes are messed up and they unethically, I think, jack up the rates during those
Depends
moments.
on who owns the hotel.
Okay, Mr. Hotel Owner.
Still capitalism.
Oh, that's funny. Um, I have a selfish question, but it will likely be helpful to plenty of other folks as well. So, Christmas came early, and my joke is so did I. But my wife, we found out, is pregnant. Um, so, so
That's it's not a joke because it happens every time.
I saw I saw a video, I think it was this morning or yesterday, where it was this couple that was like going into the bedroom and they turned the faucet on top of this glass of water to see how much it would overflow. And then they came out like 2 seconds later and they still shut it off in time. So the glass didn't overflow. But anyways, this is a real question, even though we fell off the rails. So in running a business the size of yours, in frankly having 65 kids already, right? You got to take care of 65 people and make sure that you're doing what you need to do to provide food on their table, just like you do for your own actual family. How do you balance and prioritize your days, your weeks to ensure that you're still present at home, but also present at work?
It's been a massive shift since having kids. I didn't know what I was getting into for sure. Yeah, present at home. I mean, it wouldn't be possible without like all the management stuff, right? Like everything that we talked about with EOS and Pinnacle. I don't know. It's changed. I mean, kids have changed me a ton. Shifted
They do
my
that.
views. It's yeah. Going into the second one too. My wife continued to say, "You got to cherish these last few months," and I'm like, "Why? Just another kid. Can't be that much more." Wow, I was in for a surprise there. Playing man on man coverage now, but I don't. I mean, my first is demanding. Like, he's on me. So if I don't answer him, he's daddy. What daddy answer me? It's rude.
Dad. And they are relentless.
Yeah, they're relentless. And yeah, he's coaching me, I feel like on a daily basis. So if I'm looking down at my phone, which I try not to do, 6 to 9 is kind of our time every night. Saturdays I usually get 4 or 5 hours in before everybody gets up in the morning. Same thing on Sundays, but I don't know. It's kind of demanding now after having kids. I don't get to do the after hours work that I used to, and I'm okay with it. I probably wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, it forces you to delegate and empower other people, so it probably sped up that process faster than you would have done it without kids.
Yep. It 100, like My number two said it to me probably 6 months after I had my first. And she said, I've never seen you more focused than now and trying to continue to develop people at a higher pace. So I've definitely seen that shift.
Cool.
You can always tell, I think, just even being around an office type setting. Like for me, I know, like, I probably come across as like a dick when I'm in the office because, like, when I'm there to work. Because if I'm not, if I don't want to just have a conversation at the water cooler, right? Like, when we go in, I'm gonna shut my door, I'm gonna hammer away at work, and then I want to get home to my family, right? It's like that's kind of how this thing works at this stage.
Yep.
I
And
didn't
it's,
know that your lake boat was named Family, Landon.
Well, that's family time on the boat. Double D, come on.
the perks.
Yes, yes. So yeah, no, I get that for sure. It's a different game. My wife and I are currently in the baby market as well, trying, and I've got a 12-year-old currently, so I feel like I'm going to be regressing back and at approaching 39 years old here in a couple months. I'm like, I don't know if I still got this in me, but we're going to figure out a way
You
to
got
get
it.
back to
You got it.
it.
That's
It would
Yeah,
be
funny.
nice doing it with a little more established business this time rather than when you're first starting and trying to build like crazy just to yeah, make ends meet. But yeah, it'll
I
be a
think
change.
it's a young man's game. I mean,
It
I
is.
had to delay this. It kind of worked out the way I wanted to, doing it later. But man, I kind of wish I would have started earlier.
Yeah.
You do, but then you see, and this is kind of going in a different direction, but then you see young, like people who have kids young and they do a great job, they do what they can, but they are unable to spend those years building something sustainable and incredible, frankly. Whereas if you put your head down for 10 years or whatever and just grind, it's like, all right, looking back at folks or family that were struggling to make ends meet and put food on the table for kids, it's like don't really have that issue. So I guess there's pros and cons to both. I mean, I have a buddy who he's my age, 34, and he already has four kids above the age of like 5 or 6. So he pumped them out right away, but he's also gonna be like 50 when they're out of the house. Like that's kind of cool. So I don't
I
know.
was on pace for that, just for the record, at like 45 actually.
So, do you have one on the way?
No, David does. My wife and I are currently trying to get there. So we've had some fertility
Have
stuff we're doing right now, and that can take a toll on you as well, especially on the ladies. And I feel terrible because it's like an emotional roller coaster for her, but you know, we'll get
Yep.
there in due time.
I mean, I'm conflicted though, David. Like, that's my thought was I needed that time to build the business, and how could I build a business with kids? But looking back now, I got it. I at least have to wonder, would it have pushed me into being a even better leader and growing the team,
mm.
and having the team help grow the company at an earlier age?
Well, all you can do now is speculate. We'll never know. We'll
That's
never
right.
know.
I could tell you the drive is high. I can remember. So I unfortunately my daughter's mom lives in Missouri, and it's been her and I since she was 3. Um, and so I can remember like it's like I remember having to be there to pick her up by 6 o'clock, or I got this fine at the daycare, right? And then it was like as soon as we got home, it was like you're making dinner, doing the bath routine, reading the book, putting her to bed, trying to catch up on email, work stuff, waking up at 6 o'clock the next morning, getting her up, taking her to daycare at 7, starting over. Like those days, it sounds terrible, but like I'll be curious to know like I just didn't have, I mean, I love the time that I had with her, but it was so crazy and chaotic. Like, I don't know if I brain dumped it or what. Like, it's just like it flew by. And now I'm like, all right, well, now that I'm in a little different stage of the game career wise, I wonder if like with this one, I'll be able to be a little more intentional with time, slow things down, appreciate the time. I'll have the resources and means to do like trips, which is probably pretty shitty to my daughter because she's gonna be like, well, we never did a family trip when I was that age,
Well, we
Dad.
had
It's
no
like,
money
well,
at when you were that
yeah, we were
age.
broke. Yeah, we were broke and trying to build a business, you know. So it makes you there's some incentive there when you go home and look into those little eyes and say, okay, well, this is why we're doing what we're doing, right?
Yep.
But to your point, Kyle, like being a better leader or being better at business, like I already have found like I'm already thinking through, okay, how do we increase prices in which there's the investment is still justified by the client, but increase prices so that I can, in theory, replace three clients with one to get that time back. Whereas I wouldn't have necessarily thought about that before because things were good. But now it's I need things to continue to get better, but cut my time in half. So again, we'll never know about the speculation back in our 20s, so to speak. But um, I've definitely caught myself starting to think differently for sure.
I mean, it's steady commitment, right? Like, well, the wealth management guys, the first thing they have anybody to go buy a house, go buy a car, right? They want that commitment. They want that financial commitment. I mean, that's what kids are. It's an extra burden. It's an extra weight. So you gotta think smarter, right?
I remember hiring my first employee having zero idea how I was going to pay her, but you figure it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
It's
funny.
crazy.
Well, Kyle, one of the staple questions that we ask all of our guests as a way to put a bow on this episode is a book that's had an impact on them and why. And I know before we started recording, you had made mention that you're going through the book Good to Great again, and then you plan to go through it again in 6 months. Why should someone read it, and why should someone consider reading it again and again?
I think it's just the basics of business at the end of the day. And, they won't change no matter what happens technology wise. Um, it's, it's about the customer. It's about the employees. I mean, at the end of the day, like a great company is one that has happy customers, customers that continue to come back and has great employees. I think that's what it focuses on. I got a note in my phone just of all the different notes I took along the way on the second listen to it. But um, I texted several people throughout it, and while I was listening, said I need to keep listening to this book. It's never the fundamentals aren't going to change. So
Well, it's a good kind of analogy to sports too. When you think about some of the best players and the best teams, they practice the fundamentals ad nauseum. And sure,
yeah,
there's some, elevated training that they do, but they're dribbling the ball, they're running routes, they're doing the basic stuff that oftentimes people can get lost and forget all about it and wonder why they're falling on their face. It's because they forgot to stretch, or whatever. So it's a good reminder that it's sort of like the acronym KISS, just keep it simple, stupid. Um,
yep.
so I'm glad that you shared that
I think it's
reminder.
the staple business book, in my opinion, of all of them. Like it's a must read for any entrepreneur, in my opinion. So good pick.
Good pick.
I was listening to something similar to this. It was probably like end of Q3, end of Q4, and somebody else said it, and I was like, I need to go back and listen to it again, and I'm glad I did. And
Yeah, you're never
I'm
disappointed.
no, It's simple stuff at the end of the day, and just it's always a good reminder.
Good to Great and Think and Grow Rich are my
that's my yearly book,
staples.
Think and Grow Rich.
Yep.
Well, Kyle, this has been a pleasure. And Terry, if you've made it this far, we appreciate the introduction once again.
He's probably
Kyle.
been doing push-ups the whole time he's been listening.
Taking a pocket of 20 pills at dinner.
Yep.
All his supplements.
No carbs.
Yeah.
It's just protein and shredded.
I love it. I mean, listen, I know we, in a fun way, poke at him, but like, he's fucking yoked. So it obviously works, dude. Like, absolutely diced.
Shredded.
So, but anyways, Terry, deflate your head now that we talked you up. But Kyle, with that said, we appreciate you joining. And if there's folks listening to this that either want to follow along for your journey, or they're dealing with something on their end in which your company can help, what's the best place to find you and tag along and stay in touch?
Yeah. So all of our company pages, the website is premier-claims.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook. I give everybody my cell. So my cell's 315-575-3969. Shoot me a text. Start with a text. I get a lot of calls. If I don't pick up your call, I'm probably going to text you back, make sure I know who I'm calling back. But shoot me a text. Let me know if you have a policy question. At the end of the day, that's kind of what we are known for. Public adjusters should all be policy experts. But if you have a insurance policy question, that's what I just was on the phone with Terry doing, helping him rebind coverage and get him in a better vehicle for next time. But if there's claim specific questions, our company LinkedIn page is, I think it's just Premier Claims, Facebook Premier Claims. We're on Instagram as well.
Are you Premier Claims USA on Instagram? Is that you guys?
It is. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Yep. And really any type of claim that happens with a property. So real property damage. That's where, we can take a look at them. If you've been paid out by the insurance company, have us take a look at it. Chances are that there's an opportunity for growth in the claim. We were just reporting on our numbers yesterday, and our CFO's favorite one is our average increase. So if you give me our average increase right now, I think it was at 1,122%. I don't know why I'm forgetting that. I might be off by a couple, but we're at 11x growth. So you hand me $100,000 claim, and on average, we're going to turn it into 1.1.
Usually, need to find one of those.
Yeah, we find a lot of those. That's the goal. So we work on mostly commercial claims, but Terry's is a residential package, a lot of homes, a lot of square footage, so we can work on that. But happy to answer any questions. We're just here to educate people and have them make the best buying decision, informed decision.
Love it. Kyle, this has been great.
Appreciate you. Awesome. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course.
Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believed me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah, Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic got to say. I got them picking up the pieces. Better me